So the Trump administration is now more serious about those $2,000 tariff rebate stimulus checks than ever before, and according to multiple White House officials, they're going to come out. It's just a matter of time. We also heard from President Trump this week, and he finally gave us a clearer timeline of when Americans, especially seniors, could expect these payments. Other White House officials are echoing the same message. Yes, the details are being actively shaped behind the scenes, and yes, we should expect more official information soon. And as someone who has spent more than a decade helping older Americans navigate uncertain financial times, I know how important these updates can be. You deserve clarity, honesty, and guidance you can actually trust. My goal is to help you understand what's real, what's hopeful, and what still needs a little patience so you can feel more confident about your financial peace of mind in the months ahead. Now, here's where things become more interesting and more complicated. As more officials speak out, it's becoming clearer why the administration is pushing for that specific $2,000 number. Many people assume it's based on how much tariff revenue is currently available, but it's not. The truth comes from something Kevin Hassett, a national economic advisor, explained just days ago. He pointed out that under the current administration, the average American household has lost about $3,400 in real purchasing power, meaning everyday dollars don't go nearly as far as they used to. During President Trump's time in office, households had gained roughly $1,200. So when you subtract those numbers, most families are still about $2,000 behind, and that, he says, is where the idea for a $2,000 check really came from. It's not just about politics, it's about restoring what people feel they've lost. As someone who walks alongside seniors trying to stretch every dollar, I know how deeply that loss is felt, and that's why understanding the foundation behind this $2,000 figure is so important as we watch these updates unfold. What we're also hearing now is that even though the intention behind these $2,000 checks is strong, the financial reality behind them is a little more complex. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent made it clear that while the idea of using tariff revenue to fund these rebate checks is absolutely on the table, the administration cannot move forward through an executive order alone. Legislation is required. That means Congress has to step in, debate it, vote on it, and ultimately approve it before any payments can be sent out. And this is where things slow down a bit. Right now, the Senate has been tied up working on the federal budget, something they've been wrestling with for weeks. The House is juggling similar pressures. And while the $2,000 rebate checks are an important issue, they're not the top priority. Keeping the government funded and running always comes first. So, while the administration is publicly supportive, and while White House officials say planning is underway, the actual process depends heavily on Congress taking that next step. Until then, things remain in a holding pattern, and for many seniors listening today, I know that uncertainty can feel frustrating, but understanding this part is key. The checks are possible, but they cannot bypass the political process that controls the nation's purse strings. Now, there's another layer to all of this that deserves attention: whether the tariff revenue alone is enough to cover the cost of these $2,000 checks. According to the Tax Foundation, the United States has collected roughly $130 billion in tariff revenue so far, combining both old and newly imposed tariffs. But here's the challenge: if the income cap ends up being around $100,000, about 120 million Americans would qualify. Paying each of them $2,000 would require roughly $240 billion, and right now, we simply don't have that amount sitting in reserve. That said, White House officials are expecting a significant surge in tariff revenue as the year progresses, anywhere from $50 to $100 billion over the next 2 months. If that projection holds true, total revenue could reach somewhere between $180 and $230 billion. That's not quite enough to cover every eligible American, but it brings the numbers close enough that smaller adjustments like lowering the income limit or narrowing the eligible group could make the C-Hex financially feasible. And this is where the conversation shifts again. Officials like Kevin Hassett and Treasury Secretary Bessent both hint that the final version of these payments may target fewer people, perhaps 60 to 80 million Americans instead of 120 million. From a budgeting perspective, that makes more sense. And from a senior's perspective, it means the people who have been hit the hardest by rising costs stand a much better chance of receiving help first. Another crucial piece of this puzzle is the role Congress will play, because without their approval, none of this can move forward. And right now, The political strategy surrounding these checks is becoming just as important as the economic conversation. Republicans in both the House and Senate have made it clear that they plan to put a bill on the floor, one that would officially authorize these $2,000 tariff rebate checks. Their goal isn't just to move the payments forward, it's also to get Democrats on record, especially with the major election cycle approaching. If Democrats choose to oppose the bill, Republicans could use that decision as political leverage, telling voters that Democrats block financial relief at a time when Americans are struggling with high care costs. But if Democrats support the checks, Republicans see that as a win, too, because it means bipartisan agreement will make the payments more likely to pass. Either way, the introduction of this bill is expected to happen sometime next summer, June, July, or August, which places it just months before the midterm elections. And timing matters here. If Congress approves these checks closer to the election, the impact on public opinion could be significant. For seniors who have been watching their budgets stretch thinner and thinner, the political back and forth may feel frustrating, but it also means one thing. Both parties know these checks matter and neither wants to be seen as standing in the way of financial relief. Meanwhile, President Trump has offered the clearest timeline so far. He recently said that the $2,000 tariff rebate checks would most likely go out next year, and while that timeline depends on multiple factors, tariff revenue, congressional approval, and how fast the government finalizes its budget, it's still the most straightforward estimate we've received. For the checks to be sent out sooner rather than later, several things would need to happen at the same time. First, tariff revenue must continue rising at the current pace or even faster. Second, Congress must complete the fiscal 2026 budget without delays or shutdown threats. And third, lawmakers would need to agree on the structure, eligibility rules, and funding for the rebate checks in a single bipartisan bill. But the opposite is also true. Any major budget fight, legal challenge to the tariffs, or political delay could push the timeline further out. As someone who has spent years guiding seniors through uncertain financial seasons, I want you to hear this clearly. The possibility of these checks is real. The momentum is real. But the exact timing will depend on how smoothly the next several months unfold in Washington. So, what should seniors realistically expect as we watch this unfold? First, it's important to know that the intention behind these payments is genuine. White House officials, economic advisors, and even the Treasury Secretary have all confirmed that the idea is being taken seriously and actively studied. But the final version of this plan may look a little different from the headlines. The income cap might be lower than originally suggested. Instead of covering 120 million Americans, the rebate may be focused on around 60 to 80 million people, those who have been hit the hardest by inflation, high rent, food costs, and shrinking purchasing power. If that happens, there's a strong chance that seniors on fixed incomes will be among the groups prioritized. And honestly, that's where relief is needed the most. Many older Americans are watching their monthly budgets get squeezed tighter than ever, and even an extra $2,000 could help with a month's rent, overdue bills, medical expenses, or simply restoring some breathing room in a time when everything feels more expensive. So, while we don't have the final rules yet, the direction is clear. This isn't an empty promise. The administration is building the framework, the numbers are being analyzed, and the political strategy is moving into place. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with something steady and reassuring. You deserve clarity in moments like this. You deserve to understand what's real, what's possible, and where things stand. And I'm here to walk with you through every update, every shift, and every piece of new information so you never have to feel confused or left behind. If this helped you feel even a little more informed and confident about what might be coming, then I'm truly glad.